every inch of my heart like an open wound. I can't go on, I'll drown if I don't stop the bleeding soon. Where can I find some protection to prevent this ongoing infection? Walking without skin, walking without skin. Raindrops sting, every tear cuts like it's broken glass. Your violence stalks like a shadow that will not pass. How will I know when it's safer? When every step feels like sandpaper. I'm walking without skin. I'm walking without. Hi everybody, and thank you so much for being here for this episode. Please note that I do not unmute you, so if you have anything to say, please put it into the chat. And I'm looking forward to sharing our discussions today. So today's episode is called Immediate Victim Impact. So it's about what happens immediately after a trauma, after you've experienced some major challenge or adversity. Last episode, I explained to you, I showed you the model where you move from victim to survivor to thriver and beyond to freedom by using resilience, grit, a growth mindset, and forgiveness. And today we are going to concentrate on the first phase, which is the immediate victim impact. So immediate reaction after facing any kind of life or business challenge, adversity, or disruption is usually to become that of a victim of that situation or that set of circumstances. And it is completely natural and completely relevant to become a victim. There is nothing wrong with being a victim and having the associated victim emotions. And these emotions are shock and denial and blame and guilt and self-hate and numbness and fear and anxiety and depression and a host of different emotions. And you also may have physical symptoms during your recovery process. And these could include headaches, nausea, sweating, pounding heartbeats, dizziness, crying, breathlessness, dry mouth, shouting, when either reliving or thinking about the trauma or just in your everyday life. So it's very important to understand that some of these reactions and emotions can come and go at any time on your healing journey. They can come when you are reminded of something. They can come when you smell or experience something from that trauma. It could just be somebody says something that you feel uncomfortable about. And so they come at any time and they last for any amount of time as well. And it's so important that we understand that it is not a linear process. We're up and down, and today we're feeling great and tomorrow we're feeling bad. And so it's extremely important that we understand these emotions and deal with these emotions as and when they occur. And the sooner we deal with them, the better, so that they don't land up turning into post-traumatic stress syndrome. And today I'm going to just share in this first presentation, I'm going to just share some of the symptoms that I experienced on my healing journey so that you can fully understand that it's absolutely natural to have these experiences. I was often triggered and I often fell back into the victim mindset, even when I was a survivor, not so much when I was a thriver, and definitely not at all after I had forgiven. So let's go through them. The first one is shock and denial. And these include things like avoidance, confusion, bewilderment, horror, fear, numbness. You may have a lack of energy. You get the blahs. You may have blame, and you may even become complacent. And these symptoms and reactions are absolutely normal, and sometimes they have very strong benefits because it gives you an opportunity to just take a breath and to deal with what has happened to you. So, for example, when I was forced into retirement, which I didn't want to do, it gave me time to reflect and to find an alternative solution. So it's important that we understand that sometimes shock and denial is there for a reason. But we tend to avoid reality during this phase. Did I really lose my job? Did that really happen to me? Was I really raped, or was it just a horrible, horrible nightmare? So we look for evidence that this did not happen and that it was not true. And we sometimes carry on as if nothing has happened because we're still trying to come to terms with that experience. So the morning after I was raped, my first thought was it real? And I denied and I questioned, why did it happen to me? Why did the rapist come into my world, into my space? Why me? What did I do? And I didn't fully comprehend the severity of the crime at that particular time. It took me a few days before I actually acknowledged that I was raped and what rape actually was. I did not want to confront what rape meant, and all the associated stigma and feelings around it. And as I say, when I was forced into retirement many years later, I thought, no, they've made a mistake. That can't be right. And it leads to blame. Whose fault was it? So this phase is also marked with confusion and shock and horror. Um, and, when I thought of the rapist, I felt repugnant, I felt disgust and nausea and even hysteria. And when I gathered my belongings from the police afterwards, there was blood-stained pieces of jewelry and my car had been damaged. I felt revulsion and I was fearful on my own. I was afraid to be alone. And so I needed the comfort of my friends and of my sister who actually shared my bed and helped me sleep at night. So I was in shock at that time. I was totally and completely numb. I went through phases where I had absolutely no energy. Ugh, life is just too much. I was just too tired. I didn't want to do anything or go anywhere or be anywhere or say anything. I didn't even want to go shopping. My sister dragged me through around the shops, and communication became difficult. I couldn't express what I was experiencing. And then I had the blames. I blamed myself for working late that night. I blamed myself for not being more aware. I blamed myself for not knowing how to fight. And I then also had fear. Fear not only that it would happen again, but fearful that my life would be changed forever and would I ever return to any kind of normal functioning. So it's important that we accept that this happened. We cannot deny that it happened, and denying it can only become very unhealthy and lead to further trauma, and our life can stagnate. So we need to acknowledge this particular thing and divorce it. Divorce your emotions from the actual incidents. And you may even become complacent. I can still remember driving in my convertible car afterwards with the top down. I thought It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen. I went to sleep once on my couch with the front door wide open. Complacency. It's not going to happen again. And also when you start healing, you feel I'm okay. And we don't feel that we have to answer to anybody or do anything or be anywhere for anybody. And we can become lazy. In my case, I was feeling quite smug, because I was so strong and brave. I became this activist and I was out there changing the world. And look at me, and I became quite self-absorbed in my obsession to change the world. And and later, I lost the ability to learn from that experience by not taking sufficient safety precautions. So that is the first one of shock and denial. The next one is anger. Anger, it can include real fury, or it might just be annoyance. It might be frustration, irritation, even hostility. There might be hatred associated, and even a need for revenge. And it can be a very powerful remedy, anger, to bring us out of that denial and back into reality, because we can't stay in denial forever. We have to face what actually happened. And that helps us to grow. And we may or may not experience some of these anger symptoms. And it takes away our control. We feel that we are over the situation, and the focus of our anger may change over time. I was so frustrated at the time because I couldn't drive my car. The rapist had stolen it and crashed it, and it had been in a police shootout. And so I was really frustrated that I couldn't drive my car. And then I was so angry because I had huge medical expenses that I really didn't want to have to pay. My teeth were smashed, and I had other medical concerns, and it cost me a lot of money. So that created a lot of anger. And of course, that anger did have a slight positive edge in that I wanted to change the world. I wanted to change the constitution, have rapists serve stronger crimes. The man who raped me was out on bail for rape. And I just wanted to make a change to the law. I was so angry. Also, that he didn't go straight to jail. He went to a psychiatric hospital for observation first to check his for evaluation. And it also gets, your anger can be projected onto other people. I got so angry when people kept asking me questions, or when people kept saying you're so strong and you're so brave. And then I was angry at myself for not taking better precautions. And I felt guilty that I didn't know how to fight. And then, of course, seeking revenge. Seeking revenge can be dangerous. In fact, you shouldn't take revenge, but you do and will have those feelings at some point. I used to think that maybe the rapist would get raped in jail. It was my revenge. And we don't think rationally at this time. And the anger will dissipate over time, especially if you deal with it. And we will continue as we continue through the healing cycle. And I've had passing feelings of hatred. I hated my business partner who betrayed me, and I lost the business. I didn't really have hatred feelings so much towards the rapist. It was really just that disgust and revulsion. But there were also times that I hated myself for my reactions. I hated the fact that I had to receive charity from friends who were trying to help me. And then there's the emotions of fear and anxiety. And these can include embarrassment, shame, the feeling of being threatened. And there may be times of fear, fear that things will never be the same again, fear that we will lose our faith, fear that we may have to behave in a new or a different manner. I was afraid that I might get HIV/AIDS. There's so much fear. And then, of course, the fear that it may happen again. And also the fear that people may see you differently, see you in a different light. And shame is when we are hurt and humiliated or distressed by the opinions of others, or or of our actions and our behaviors. I was embarrassed many times. People were talking about me. They were talking about the rape. And and then there were times that I just felt I had to tell people about the rape, and other times that I didn't want to tell people about the rape. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And then other times I wanted people to support me. I felt very vulnerable and exposed. And I felt threatened that I had discovered a side of myself that I didn't know existed. And that was the activism side, my need to change the world. Up until then, I'd never really given any thought to becoming an activist for anything. And suddenly I found this strength within me. It was my road to Damascus. And I headed into this with no roadmap to follow. And that is why I'm doing this program, because I want people to have a roadmap that they can follow and to know that they are not alone. And then, of course, the next one is depression. Depression comes in many forms. It can be detachment, it can be a feeling of being overwhelmed, helplessness. You want to just give up and run away. You want to just stay in bed all day. You want to fly away into the distance. And it might include guilt and disillusionment. You know, I was so disillusioned with the fact that this man was on the streets. I was disillusioned with a partner that I trusted who betrayed me. And I was disillusioned with a system that allowed me to be forced into retirement. So what happens, we have sadness, and it's a loss of interest in enjoyable things. We have low motivation, and this can lead to depression. And unmanaged, this can also lead to what is referred to as major depressive disorder, MDD, and we don't want to go there. So it is so important that we manage the trauma initially. We may experience one or more of these symptoms or signs, and we may lose our core sense of self. Who am I? What is my identity? What happened to my dreams and my visions? We may feel guilty or feel that we are bad or unworthy. Low moods, lack of energy, loss of ambition and drive. We may feel that there's no way out. How can I ever recover from the situation? I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm helpless. I'm lost. There's also loneliness, because nobody really knows. Even you might find other people who've had similar experience, but nobody's had your experience. And you can feel very lonely, and you feel that nobody really understands and nobody's really listening to you. You can become anxious and nervous and confused. Panic attacks occur. You may push people away from you, people who are there to help and support you. Fatigue, that absolute, I just can't get up this morning, I don't want to carry on. Or you may just battle to fall asleep or wake up, and you may just have no desire to do anything. Start clenching our jaws, sometimes when we're asleep and sometimes when we're awake. Gaining weight. I gained a lot of weight, and you may become ill. For me, I had a psychosomatic back problem that left me bedridden for 6 months. And these are all symptoms. We may have difficulties in concentrating and thinking and solving problems or even making decisions. We stop taking care of our appearance and even our cleanliness. This hopeless outlook on life. We feel trapped. We don't know where to go, who to turn to, what to do. So we start withdrawing from the people we love, from the things, the sports, the hobbies that we've done, and all the things that we've loved and enjoyed in our life. We also have emotions that run dark, and these include the fear and anxiety, the worry, the stress, the self-judgment, very important, the self-doubt, the guilt, the blame, the rage, anger, hostility, hatred. I can remember thinking that if I saw my business partner in the street and I was driving my car, I would not hesitate to ride him over. Dreadful thoughts to want to actually kill somebody. And we just become disillusioned and find that our values and beliefs are no longer compatible with our new world view. We may behave in a zombie-like manner, and our activities and our speech may slow down. We may turn to drugs, alcohol, or prescription medicine, which might help us cope. What is the point of continuing? And we may decline into clinical depression. We may even consider suicide or harming ourselves in some way. Sure. So any questions so far, please put them in the chat. So if there is any benefit to depression, it shows us that we have accepted the situation. We have accepted what happened to us, and we are not facing it, but we have accepted it. And that's one of the first steps to healing. I experienced sadness and depression, and I cried many, many times. There were moments of such helplessness, so many times that I felt I could no longer cope and did not want to cope, did not want to carry on. I was overwhelmed in facing those damaged belongings of mine. I can remember my sister, the police handed me back my ring that he had stolen, and it was covered in blood, and I just threw it across the room crying. And my sister picked it up and cleaned it up and gave it back to me. My clothes that had been ripped off me and torn. And my sister wanted to take me shopping to buy a new one. That was a different story altogether. But also people continually sympathizing and offering gifts and financial aid. It was really difficult for me to manage. And then guilt often manifests when we feel that we are not who we thought we were. We consider how we react, and we may even question what our core beliefs are. We may question how we dress. I mean, that night I was raped. I was wearing shorts and a little skimpy t-shirt. I was also having a drink at the time. So we may start drinking more. I started drinking a lot afterwards. And we may have other decisions, and this leads to our guilt and our shame even becoming worse. And I also had the, if only I hadn't worked that night, if only I knew how to fight. And I had guilt that I didn't attend the rapist's first court appearance. What if he got off on bail? What would happen? And then I had all guilt about that. I had feelings that what if I didn't recognize him and he got off because I didn't recognize him. And then, as I mentioned, it was 2 years after I was raped, and because I had not dealt with my emotions, I landed up with psychosomatic back problems. I had 2 failed back operations, and I was bedridden for 6 months. And it was all in my head because I'd been so brave and so strong at the beginning, instead of sitting down and saying, I need to deal with these emotions of fear and depression and anxiety and hatred. And I didn't do that. So it forced me to examine those things back 2 years later. And then finally, there are the emotions of elation, happiness, and relief. And you think, how can I have those emotions after experiencing a dreadful trauma, after experiencing a major challenge or adversity? How can I be happy? How can I be relieved? And it's a very strange thought process. But yeah, I was relieved and grateful that I was still alive. He had tied me up and left me to bleed to death, and I managed to escape, and I'm still alive. And and then when I realized that other people had the same anger, the same viewpoint, the same sense of disgust or hatred or fear, I realized I wasn't alone, and that was a sense of relief. And it even gave me a sense of happiness to know that I wasn't the only one facing these problems. I didn't feel bad about my feelings, and it gave me a sense of anticipation that things could improve in the future. And I was excited that I might be able to have an impact and make changes to the Constitution and to the law. I was elated that I had control over my own life, at the same time as contributing to the improved lives of others. I was so pleased to get my ring back. I was happy that people spoiled me. I enjoyed being the center of attention and being called strong and brave. So that is an overview of some of the emotions that you may feel as you are going through your healing journey. And in episodes to come, we will take each of those emotions and we will say, how do we deal with them? And I will be bringing in experts on each of the topics to share their views on what we can do to manage those emotions while we are a victim so that we can move on to becoming a survivor. So thank you very much for joining us today. Please know that you can reach out to me at walkingwithoutskin.com. There you will find you can book a free 30-minute session with me where we can discuss where you are on your journey of healing. And you can also look at my book. It's called Walking Without Skin. It's available on Amazon, and you can read more about my story and my healing journey. So please do reach out to me. I've got a free forgiveness checklist on my website. I have information about my Brave program. I have a program on teaching boys and men and girls and women to be brave, to eliminate toxic behaviors so that we can eradicate violence against each other and just bullying and harassment and other negative behaviors. So I'd love you all to please join me at walkingwithoutskin.com. I also have a Facebook page by that name, and you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So connect, join me, and let's together find a way where we can walk together and fly free. I wanna love. I want all the good things life is made of. I won't let you win. You don't have control. You stole what you could, but you don't get my soul. With every day I'm getting stronger, and soon I won't be